You're watching HBC. I'm your host Faisal Hassan. East Africa is facing the worst ever drought nearly in 40 years. More than 20 million people in Somalia, Kenya and Ethiopia are in dire need of humanitarian assistance due to an acute drought that hit the entire region. Nearly 90% of Somalia is now in a severe drought, following 3 consecutive failed rainy seasons. Some areas are facing their driest season in 40 years. Nearly 3.5 million people are already acutely food insecure, and millions more are now at risk of going hungry by the beginning of this year, according to Oxfam. In Kenya, scores of livestock have starved to death due to water and assistance shortages. Fahad Ibrahim, who is an agricultural and climate change expert, is now joining us from Istanbul. And Mr. Fahad, welcome to the program. Could you give us a glimpse on the reported drought?
East Africa is facing the worst heat drought close to 60 years, and it's devastating every 5 years to hear these tragic incidents that happen in East Africa. Not only East Africa facing the droughts and climate change, but also East Africa is facing the conflict, famine, outbreak of COVID-19, and all those kinds of make the situation worse than ever before. And it's very extreme, and I'm extremely worried about what's going on in East Africa when it comes to droughts and the climate change that people in East Africa are facing. So that the large population in East Africa depending on crop for their livelihoods and for sell for the crops to survive their livelihood, so that the situation become more complicated in the nowadays. Also, what I would like to mention is the EPEC, the climate and application prediction, and the climate and application center in East Africa has done it before, has done it report which tells quote unquote, which tells that 1.2 million people, Kenya alone, are facing hunger and uncertain situation, which bad to it. But in the reality that when we talk about East Africa is a semi-arid, whereby the people who live in there are lack of water. Also, they face conflict and other problems that exist in the ground.
Okay, Mr. Fahad, do we know why those droughts are coming back each year? What is the real primary cause of this?
Well, that's a good question. I think many factors that we can mention, but I would like to mention 3 things, and the others they will confront it on those 3 things. Number one, geophysical. When I mean geophysical, it means East Africa is a humid, and greenhouse gas, that human activity, that greenhouse gas contributes and led to the climate change, would make the situation very complicated. Second to that, I would like to mention is the shortage of rainfall. In East Africa, as I mentioned earlier, East Africa is a semi-arid. More than 80% of the land is a semi-arid or arid, which makes which tells that how dry the situation is, and it's become the dry land, so that there is no rain that they will get in those areas, and it makes more dryness. When the situation becomes dryness, and when I mean when the land becomes dry, the soil it become eroded, and then when the rain comes, soil will not take will not absorb the water, and it become water it goes to flooding. So that's another point. The third point I would like to mention is the climate change, which makes the situation very complicated.
Okay, Mr. Fahad, is there any mechanisms that East African leaders can take to prevent the repeated droughts that are occurring in East Africa each year?
That's a good question. East African leaders have a collective responsibility on this issue. Number one, what we can do is they come together, solve this issue uh, within the critical minded, within the critical minded. So that number two, what they can do is they make what we call mobilization to their communities by helping them or by using IGAD or any other agents who can collaborate, who can work with them through the regional level. Second to that, what they can do, those leaders, is they make awareness, awareing them to the people, to make a frustration and to empower them rules which can help not to happen deforestation. For example, in the case of Somalia, we don't have any of those kinds of issues, so that you will see deforestation, happen, degradation, and all those kinds are in place. So that when we talk about East Africa in general, the leaders should, in my perspective, I would say that the leaders should collectively work on this issue, come together, join together, make this issue as a regional issue, not as a country issue, so that I think they will come up. I think they will come up very helpful strategic that can solve this problem.
He was Fahad Ibrahim, agricultural and climate change expert, who was joining us from Istanbul. Thank you, Mr. Fahad. Before we conclude the program, is there any measures you think could tackle the repeated droughts in East Africa? Leave your thoughts on the comment section and don't forget to share this program with your friends. See you again.